I'm delighted to welcome to the stage the next session we have before the 10 o'clock meetings start. We have a two-part session here where we're going to have a presentation from Jim Flatt from DMC Biotechnologies, and then he's going to be joined on stage from Mat Wielopolski from Deloitte for a bit of a fireside chat. So please put your hands together for Jim. Pleasure. There you go.
Great. Wonderful. Good morning. It's a pleasure to speak on a journey through industrial biotechnology. And so, I think it's no secret that the last few years have been somewhat challenging for this area. There was a period of sort of irrational exuberance that began in probably 2012, 2015, where we saw biomanufacturing starting to, get into its own world, where we saw the opportunity in many areas, from not only pharmaceuticals, where it started, to the lowest value, highest volume commodity in biofuels and very large scale industrial chemicals. Well, I think we all know that the last couple years have seen a bit of a retrenchment and challenge. And I think it's useful to keep a historical perspective here. There we go. I think some historical perspective is helpful here to put in context what we're experiencing. The noted economist Carlota Perez, in her research, had actually focused on many of the technological revolutions and studying basically the elements. And what she found, as have other researchers, is that there is really this characteristic cycle here. And she described this as in two phases of an installation period and then a deployment period. The installation period is when we develop those concepts and see the potential for a new technology and begin to explore all different types of use cases. As the industries get excited about the potential, as we continue to be about biomanufacturing, we also then start to get a lot of investment that flows in, and without actually testing really the applications, the state of technology, and the fit at that time. And so we get a bit of this frenzy, what she referred to as a frenzied period, where we get overinvestment and ultimately we see a bit of a hangover. And that's actually where we're at right now. But I do see reason for measured optimism here, because we see that many of actually the fundamentals remain very good. The need continues to be there and is even more important. And yet, as we've gone through this more difficult period, we're actually seeing the pace of technological improvement improving. And so that's hence this talk around how we supercharge biomanufacturing. I think it's important, though, that in order to succeed in this period, we stay, we go back to business fundamentals. And this is thinking less about technology push and more about customer and product centricity, where we're actually thinking, where does this technology apply? And how can we really create an advantage that our customers, who actually will be willing to put forward money for? Obviously, having a technology platform provides the optionality, but at the same time, one must stay, laser focused at this point to ensure success. And then finally, we've seen some of the challenges where we've had a bit of a build it and they will come mentality, and unfortunately, that did not work out very well. And so one has to earn the right through supply agreements, through repeatable customer demand, to invest in the assets to produce products a new way. And of course, capital efficiency is the name of this period. Let's see. Okay. So one reason I was attracted to join DMC Biotechnologies is that I actually believed and have believed for a long time being in the industry that the technology platform has the ability to overcome a number of the challenges that have been barriers to more rapid adoption of biotechnology. And specifically, they've been the inability to achieve a competitive cost structure with very mature petrochemical-based processes, which again have perfected over many decades. And so again, it's a bit of a challenge. Secondly, the very long development times and high cost of developing these products. And then finally, in some cases, challenges in scaling, which have further eroded the value proposition and further increased the amount of time and cost. And so DMC, dynamic metabolic control, is all about how do we overcome how do we achieve these benefits by simplifying biology. And so again, even the simplest microbes, and hopefully most of us have baked bread, we think, oh, it's just a simple little biological system, but these single cell systems catalyze thousands of reactions to grow and survive. And of course, that's a real disadvantage when it comes to how we harness this biological system to produce products of interest. And so the technology employed by DMC, which has broad global patents, is all about using a combination of synthetic metabolic valves that can be controlled, or metabolic switches, to govern large amounts of primary carbon and energy flows. It is using gene silencing and targeted proteolysis to achieve what is considered to be sort of an ideal process to get to lowest cost, which in the first phase, we are actually producing the biocatalyst. And then in the second phase, as shown here, we're taking a renewable feedstock, oftentimes a simple sugar, and converting it to the product of interest with absence of byproducts. And what we're able to achieve, and I'll show you a little bit of case study, is near theoretical maximum yields, which, as we look at deploying our technology for a broader range of chemicals, this is the single most important determinant. Let's see if you can go to the next slide, please. So, again, this was great theory, but how has it worked in practice? Well, as you can see from this chart here, this is actually real data taken from our first product that I'll talk a little bit more about, which is a nutritional ingredient, myo-inositol, which has a clinically proven effective ingredient with broad applications in supplements and nutritional products for multiple benefits. This project was started late in Q3 of 2025. We just made the announcement of our commercial launch with customers just about a month ago. And what you see here is this project went from concept to fully mature performance metrics that actually exceeded our cost goals, which actually get us to a place of cost advantage versus incumbent process. Oh, thank you. Great, thanks, Paul. As well as being advantage versus the one biological source that we're aware of. We will have this product fully commercialized within 2 years of starting. So we take something that often took 5 to 7 years and now are bringing this down to about 2 years, and we believe we can do this more. And as shown here on the right-hand side, we've had success in the past going from lab scale to full commercial scale with very little degradation in the key performance metrics that determine the economics. And this is frankly because we have a more robust system. We've simplified the biology so it's more resilient to some of the changes and perturbations. So in terms of where we're going with this, we are, as we heard in the last discussion, it's very important to be thoughtful about your product pipeline. And so recognizing some of the constraints that we have, we have focused initially on developing higher value nutritional and personal care ingredients that we can produce profitably at existing contract manufacturers. We'll be producing our first two products actually in Europe, and again, for sale globally. This gives us the ability to get to cash flow positive operations, which is so critical in a couple of years. But we know we can have, the biggest impact in higher volume chemicals, especially performance and commodity chemicals. And here you heard in the prior discussion, it's so critical to have partners. So we currently are partnered with Michelin, with ScienceCo, and we just announced our partnership several days ago with Toyobo of Japan, a large specialty chemical producer, to jointly develop a key chemical intermediate for large volume biomaterials. And these are both customers and production partners that are so critical to scaling this technology. And this is, I think, a fairly commonsensical plan in light of the current environment. So a little bit about this first product, myo-inositol. This is actually, as you can see, a simple sugar. Yet it functions in the human body and other animals as a key signal transduction molecule. So it essentially regulates communication amongst cells, and as such has multiple health benefits. So it's an obligated ingredient in infant formula. It is used to promote insulin sensitivity in pre-diabetic and diabetic nutritional products. And last but not least, it's showing a growing body of evidence in the ability to help address a condition called PCOS that actually impairs fertility in women of childbearing age and is prevalent at about 15 to 20% of the population. So this is a medium value ingredient that we can produce profitably, and what consumers are looking for here, products that can be produced more naturally instead of the chemical incumbent process. We have a higher purity ingredient because of the nature of DMC's technology. And finally, we can offer supply chain, local supply chain and price security, which again, we know is a problem. So the final aspect is, our path to manufacture. And again, I think this is something that other companies will be emulating. But at this point, we know the capital is not there to build a large facility because we don't actually have the demand yet to justify this. We will in a few years. So in that path, we have identified products specifically that can be made with little or no additional capital investment at contract manufacturers that have excess capacity. We are facilitated in scale up with our partnership with Michelin and Danone at a facility that is a pilot and demonstration scale facility located in Clermont-Ferrand. That will be coming on stream middle of 2026. And this is going to enable us to quickly scale products out of the laboratory to get representative samples for market development and ultimately to prove out the economics. And this then will lead us to building our own facilities with our partners over time, but in that progression as demand indicates. So that's a little bit reasons I see for optimism. And at this point, I want to introduce my new friend, Mat Wielopolski of Deloitte, to be my discussion partner on this. But thank you.
Thanks. After so much work, we can sit down, I think.
Good.
Yeah, thanks also for the invitation, Paul, to be here. Jim, it's an honor to be here with you because you've spent 30 years in the industry and you've seen probably a lot of biotech innovation waves up and down, coming and going. And you showed us the Carlota Perez diagram, right? The framework, mentioning that we're now in this frenzy phase. Would you say we're still closer to the implementation, or rather already at the deployment phase?
Yeah.
And what is different to the 90s and 2000 biotech innovations?
So a couple things. I would say we're in the late frenzy period where, again, we're seeing a bit of the hangover still from some of the companies that had great visions, that had a belief that they could really transform chemical production. Very worthy, but ultimately was a bridge too far. And so we're sort of working that through the system now. But what that experience has done is given companies like DMC and others understanding of how to make this business model work. And again, what gives me some optimism that we're now entering this deployment phase is that we're actually seeing the aspirations of the technology realized, where we're, as I shared with this example that I'm confident we can repeat for other products, we can take this cycle down at a time where investors and other corporate partners can see real success within a few years. And that's an investable proposition. And it's the challenge has been, when I've looked at history, I've seen companies announce 10-year commitments to different things. You've seen this, and oftentimes as big companies go through some of their own challenges in the markets, sometimes those pledges, disappear or watered down, and so that made for a real challenge for companies that were trying to develop large volume chemical biofuel solution. But now we're able to do something and get a little bit more of that immediate gratification, and that's it. So again, we always tend to think of things linearly, but we're actually seeing really an exponential rate of improvement in the technology. And if you, again, project that out a couple years, you see now, and it's not just DMC, but others that can have this ability to develop new products on a time scale that partners and investors need, which then creates its own success, because then there's interest in doing it again and again and again. But we have to prove that we can do this, and that's what hasn't been seen, and that's why we're in this, I think, this challenging period.
Yeah, and I think one of the proofs that you showed is the bioinositol case study.
Yeah.
94% theoretical yield. I think less than 24 months from concept to market. How, and knowing, because we've heard it also before, that investors are also now looking into rather short, near-term investments. And playing a bit the devil's advocate, how would you make sure that you can constantly replicate these type of technologies, not only to maybe some lucky molecules or lucky shots, but rather on a larger scale?
No, I mean, you always need some good luck now and then, because you're going to get your share of bad luck. But I genuinely believe, and we saw with the proof, and having been in the field for a long time, that we now have, at least I can only speak for DMC, we've really, I think, perfected this technology. And it's been a number of years to really understand how to realize in practice this vision of Mike Lynch, one of our technical founders, who conceived this concept. So again, great in vision and a great paper, but how do you actually make it work? And so we've made investments in what we'll call chassis strains that essentially are optimized, strains that are optimized for carbon and energy flow to key metabolic nodes that then open up a range of specific chemical products and classes of chemicals, whether they be amino acids, branched or aromatic, certain phenolic compounds, certain types of diols and diacids. And so with this in mind, it's now just a matter of sort of adding on the downstream steps from these nodes to get to the product of interest. And that's why I'm more confident that we can do this again and again. I think our second product, we're actually on a faster track than what I showed you here. And we're seeing in some of our early chemical results, chemical program results already, proof of concept in, less than 2 months, where you're already getting decent, accumulation of the intermediates and the finished product. And that's, that's what gives me confidence that we can replicate. I'm not going to say every product's going to go that quickly, because there are intrinsically sometimes certain rate limiting steps that you must go through enzyme engineering and further debottlenecking. But by and large, we have a system now in which, in essence, we can really do the cell programming into that chassis to create the product of interest. So it's absolutely not a fluke that we sort of got lucky once. Very confident we can do it again, and that was by design. Yeah.
And another tricky question is, how about the business aspects? Because we've seen that from the competitive landscape, you're launching this product into a market which is highly dominated by also chemical hydrolysis in China. We've heard also before that China is becoming stronger and stronger with biotechnological innovations. We also know that China is very good in making a lot of things and often cheaper. How do you make sure that you remain cost competitive in these markets and do not have to rely on things like a green premium that we will talk about tomorrow?
Good question, Matt. So, some of the data I had, I don't think I showed it here, but we've actually benchmarked our one key competitor in China, and again have a lot of respect for the research and their ability with great focus to do good things. So it's something where you've got to continue to be paranoid. But I think the way we compete here is through the system, which inherently gives us about a 30% yield advantage, which translates to a commensurate reduced cost. So we know that we can compete. We also know, and most importantly, we have customers now. We have several, one signed supply agreement, another that's about to be finalized, and a good pipeline of customers who, again, purchase from these incumbents and are looking for the value proposition that we seek, that they can build a more natural story around the product. It's higher purity and avoid some of the problems that have happened from a quality standpoint that have caused product recalls in the area. And then finally, it provides diversification. So we can offer what they can't, which is a long-term volume and price security. So again, these are the facts that, in these agreements that believe, we'll be able to compete. And I think it's a good template for other markets. But again, one needs to keep thinking ahead. How do we diversify our raw materials? Second generation sugars, cellulosics. These are things that ultimately we've got to be investing in as we look at subsequent iterations for these effectively drop-in products, because it will, you're going to have to compete as every other company competes on product quality, consistency, and price. And so we will have to, those are all basic business fundamentals, and we'll have to do the same. But again, it's I would rather be playing our hand than that of our competitors. So it's just inherent in the approach we take that it confers advantage for many products.
So looking at the time, let's imagine 2030. You're back here, of course.
A few more gray hairs, maybe no hair.
And you've achieved all the milestones in your roadmap. How would you say the success looked like, and where do you see DMC's role in making biotech more the default than a premium?
Yeah.
Maybe also with the help of AI and new technologies.
Sure.
entering.
So I think first and foremost, I would love to be here, Paul, 5 years from now to share the case study. At that point, we will be profitable. In fact, we should be profitable much sooner, which at the end of the day gives us the right to realize having a bigger impact. But at that point, we should have 4 or 5 products in the nutritional and personal care segment. We will have hopefully our first 2 specialty chemical products to market, at least in market development quantities. And at that point, being able to retrofit or build facilities to produce the volume. Some of our partners like Michelin, they can take an entire plant capacity, the entire capacity of the plant. So I'd like to be able to show that. But maybe the most important thing as you think about legacy is just providing a good model for success, because this is an industry we're going to hopefully see multiple success stories. And but at the same time, as you've seen, it's really important to think about the technology, think about the product, how you're going to approach product and product validation importantly. And that's what I want to be able to highlight, like, hey, this is something we should emulate. And if we have other companies saying, hey, we're following some kind of this playbook, that's great, because no one company is going to dominate. No one company can affect the kind of change and realize the full opportunity. So it's important to basically seed or show the model that works so that others can follow. And this is when we'll realize, I think the goals of decarbonization and more local and de-risk supply chains that the industry wants.
Thanks. I think great advice for all the founders who are trying to get out of the valley of death. Speak to Jim. And Paul, speak to your new sponsor, 2030.
Yeah, that's right. Sign us up.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone.